Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moore and Conley Football Show. So glad you could join us once again on the airwaves. Oh, it's getting cold here in the UK. A little bit of a cold snap. Not as cold as it is in Buffalo. I saw that car that had basically turned into an ice car. But hey, I'm staying warm. I'm next to a radiator. I am your humble host, Tom Moore, and joining me, as always, after that ramble about the temperature, it's my good friend Ollie. Ollie, are you warm or not?
Only just. I just had my boiler fixed, so within this hour, within the last 10 minutes, I've become warm, which is great.
Boiler trouble. If you're having boiler trouble out there, ladies and gentlemen, we feel for you. Ollie, don't we feel for them?
We feel for them. I'm in the same boat as them. I wore today, Tom, a jumper, a hoodie, and a coat indoors. Indoors.
That's epic. Okay, if you're a new listener, then thanks for giving us a chance. If you're an old listener, then welcome back, buddy. What we do on the Moore and Conley Football Show, we will first of all hit you with the news. Plenty of news over the last couple of days as well in our late show here, since we had our early show, including some coaching moves, some suspensions. So we'll get right into that. And then after that, we will go into our preview. So it's divisional weekend. We got 4 games to go through. We'll give you our breakdown. We'll predict the score. Maybe we'll give you a bold prediction or two. Who knows, Ollie? It's going to go down.
Who knows? It's the craziest weekend of the season. It's the one that most people look forward to the most. Me too. And there's going to be some upsets along the way, I think.
Exactly, baby. That's what it's all about. Okay, let's go to the news. Okay, so, Ollie, let's start the news this week with some interesting comments about some coaches, let's say. So, first of all, let's start off with the Browns. The Browns have hired Hugh Jackson. Now, Ollie, it's really interesting because I expected, and this links to the second news story, the Giants or something like that to get Hugh Jackson because he's got, high potential coming out of that Bengals setup. And he's gone to the Browns, and it seems like I wouldn't, if you'd put all of the teams looking for a coach on one side and all of the coaches that could potentially as candidates on the other side, like you do in a restaurant on a placemat when you're 5 years old, I wouldn't have drawn the wiggly line all the way between the Browns and Hugh Jackson.
No, I agree with you, and it's kind of, it goes to this entire coaching cycle, both in the college game and in the pro game. We've had a bunch of internal hires. Teams have been almost unwilling to go outside their own programs to look at people in the college and pro game. And Hugh Jackson, I wrote a column about this yesterday. It's just an odd fit to me. And he's a good coach, and it's the best hire that organization could make. And you have to credit them for going and getting that guy. But I really felt if Josh McDaniels isn't available, I think he's the best candidate on the market of the open guys. When you look at the resumes, a guy who has experience in the job you're employing him to do. How many of these teams go out and employ guys who've never done the job they hire them for? Defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, head coach, they do it all the time, general managers. This guy's been in the job before, he gets it, he understands his responsibility. He had some success at it. It wasn't great in Oakland, he got fired, but he went 8-8. It wasn't a complete disaster considering what happened to that organization. And he has, in my opinion, things you've got to find in either quarterbacks or head coaches. Where's the elite trait? Is he just a regular guy? Is he just Joe Philbin who does a lot of things pretty well? Or does he have elite stuff? Hugh Jackson is an elite offensive coordinator, and more than that, an elite quarterback coach. And when you're looking at Cleveland or any of these jobs right now, they all are failing because there's a problem with the quarterback situation, except for maybe the Giants. And who else can come help you than Hugh Jackson? I'm surprised that they were able to get him and no one else went hard for him. That disappoints me for him because I like him a lot. Also for the Browns, we had this big thing about they're going full analytics, they're all in. This is just kind of a retread hire. And I like him a lot. Like I said, I think he's the best they could get. But I was expecting something more maybe outside the box. Finding a line coach we didn't hear of before. Going to the FCS in college. Going to high school. And just plucking some guy because he ticks the boxes and what have you. So I was surprised by that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And the point you make about, somebody who's got experience doing the job before, it's interesting perspective as well because, in the world of employment and the NFL, everyone's got to be a first-time coach sometime or there'll never be any new first-time, and there'll never be anybody else becoming a head coach and then you just run out of people. Do you know what I mean?
I couldn't agree more, but it's just when that happens, usually it doesn't work out and then they go somewhere else for it to work out. For the most part, it's not a universal law, but you look at the situations, Pete Carroll, not very good in the first few stops, has to go back to college, comes back to the NFL. Hey, I've done this thing before, I get it now. and he goes on to win Super Bowls. Bill Belichick,
Yeah.
the famous example, Cleveland, then to New England. In a lot of places, it doesn't work out initially, and then they get the experience then. So it's strange when you have organizations like the Giants who aren't far away from competing for a title. They have that championship quarterback in place. They're not in a rebuild mode, and yet they're comfortable going with a first-time guy.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second. First of all, I just want to touch on something that you said. Josh McDaniels, the best potential coaching candidate out there.
Look at who's on the market here. We got Chip Kelly, we got Mike Shanahan vying for the San Francisco job. I like Chip Kelly. Tom Coughlin, are people interested in bringing him in? The last 3 years haven't been so good. Start stacking them up. Hugh Jackson to me is probably the best, and then I think McDaniels would be an excellent hire for someone again learning from his mistakes. He was really young when he first took that Denver job, and it wasn't a disaster to begin with. He just fell off a cliff because of his personality, and maybe he's fixed some of those things being back with the Pats.
What was wrong with his personality? I never really understood that.
Big swinging dick in the room. That's what he is. I remember, you should go and read my former employee, Ted Sundquist, wrote a great piece for Bleacher Report about the drafting of Jay Cutler. And in there he explains just kind of the friction between McDaniels, Cutler, front office, quarterback coach. I won't spoil it for people. It's a fascinating read. Go and just type in Ted Sundquist, Jay Cutler on Google. It should come up pretty quick. Read that and you'll find out all you need to know about McDaniels at his first stop.
Okay, go check that out, listeners, for some Josh McDaniels inside information. Okay, moving on. We've referenced a team already, the New York Giants. They have gone internal. They've promoted offensive coordinator Ben McAdoo, previously, of course, under the Packers and came through as a coach under Mike McCarthy. Let's hope that this branch of the Mike McCarthy coaching tree is not as rotten as the Joe Philbin branch, Ollie.
And again, I go back to what I said before, no previous experience in this job before, and again, everyone's going to say, look, everyone's got to get it. I understand that. I'm saying this team is closer. You'd give that job with no experience to someone like the Browns. Hey, go and have at this. Try and make it your own, I think. And then when you're someone like a team at the next level, the Raiders, for example, they're going to get...
Hang on a second. I've got to stop you there, Ollie, because that's the whole thing that the Browns didn't want to do, though, did they? The Browns need to stop being a laughingstock. So why should they be the team that offers it to someone who's never done it before? And why shouldn't they be the team to hire Hugh Jackson?
I'm not saying they shouldn't. I mean, they can hire whoever they want. Like I said, I think he's the best on the market, and so they went and got that guy. But you just look at their history. They've done both ways. It hasn't worked out, frankly. They've done every way, and it's not worked out. They had Nick Saban and Bill Belichick on the same coaching staff, and they couldn't make the playoffs. So they've done all the different ways. I'm just saying, for this type of Giants job, I think that's where you go and get a guy who's been there, seen it, done it before, when you're still trying to contend for Lombardi trophies. I could be wrong. He could be a great hire. I don't know.
Well, we don't fully understand the relationship between, say, him and Eli, him and Odell Beckham.
But why does the relationship matter? What does that matter, though? I mean, no one liked Chip Kelly in the Eagles. He won 20 games the first couple of years. No one liked Sean Payton in New Orleans for the most part. He's got a Lombardi trophy. Bill Belichick's a dick to people in the building, and he's trying to get a 5th Super Bowl. It's like, I look at the performance on the field with Ben McAdoo, and their offense has been average at best. It's not even been average. It's just been below average. And so he gets promoted. It could be great, but I just don't understand it. And what it says to me, Symes wrote this pretty well today, Jerry Reese gets to stay, Ben McAdoo gets to stay. They're basically saying this whole 3 years, we should have been winning Super Bowls, and we're going to blame it on Tom Coughlin. And that just seems weird.
Yeah, that's not right. I disagree with that completely. That is not a message that I really subscribe to. I really hope all the best for Ben McAdoo. I mean, he's been cursed his whole life with such a name like that. Bullied from when he was probably 6 years old in the playground. So let's hope he gets it.
There's just no elite trait that's noticeable. I mean, we're not in the building, so we don't get to see that. But from his resume, I mean, it's very underwhelming.
I was actually Well, there was a lot of buzz when he was quarterback's coach.
Yeah, he coached Aaron Rodgers. Must have been really tough for him.
And that's a really interesting point. It's probably very easy. You could actually probably say the same about Josh McDaniels. I'm not saying that's the case, Ollie, but what I'm saying is when you have an elite quarterback there and you're a part of that offense, maybe you're the quarterback coach or you're the offensive coordinator, something like that, it can possibly distort actually how good you are as a coach.
I disagree with the McDaniels thing. First of all...
Hey. I was just saying...
I know.
Say the same. I wasn't saying that was a case.
I know people will say the same thing, though. First of all, one was an OC and one was a quarterback coach, so it's different. And second of all, McDaniels instituted things for Brady that they'd never done before, moving from West Coast verbiage to bringing in what is basically conceptual offense. They'd never done that before. Bringing the no-huddle to the NFL. No one's really running it. They started running it because Josh McDaniels wanted to do it. So he changed, realigning the Mike linebacker. No one did that. The Patriots started it. That was all Josh McDaniels. idea. So that's three things that changed the game for some part, instituted by his brain with Belichick, and then given to Brady to go and utilize. I haven't seen Ben McAdoo do anything like that.
So why didn't he, and on that offensive coordinator perspective, well, Philbin was the offensive coordinator and he blew out the water, so there's an interesting point on that. But also, well, if Josh Daniels was so such an inspirational guy, why did he, in inverted commas, fail then in Denver? I know you're saying it wasn't a full fail, and you said it was because he was the biggest swinging dick in the room, but there's lots of, like we talked about, Belichick and others, big swinging dick in the rooms that want to put their mark on things, and they can succeed because they've got the goods to back it up. Why, if he is such a genius, did that not happen?
Well, again, you can have people who can be very good at thinking things up and sometimes as an act, and some guys are just great in one role and not in another thing. Like, again, bring it to real life. Some guy can be great at one job, you move into another one with more responsibility, he might fail at it, but he's still great at the other job. So I don't know, I wasn't in there.
Why would you hire him, though, then, as a head coach?
Because I think that a lot of what happened, the initial stuff, from what I've read, I wasn't in the building, so I don't know, and from the people I've spoken to, I think a lot of it was personality-based, and he was really young, and I think that he's been in amongst a great program. I think what's happening is that everyone knows in the league that he wants the Patriots job when Belichick leaves. I think that's what's happening here. And a lot of those guys don't leave the Pats anyway. When you think about it, a lot of the personnel department stays the same. This is the first time in about 6 years they lost someone this season from the personnel side. And not a lot of the coaches leave unless Bill Belichick says, okay, it's fine, Bill O'Brien can go, Crennel can go. And then they promote from within. Not a lot of guys leave that building.
No, completely understand that. It's just interesting that I don't know. I think there was Tom. No, hang on. I think there was a circular argument there that ends up coming back down to Josh McDaniels is great at the job that he's in the place that he's in, and actually, if you took him out of that pond, then I don't think he'd play that good.
I think I'd like to see him try it again. What I'd also say is that I think he's a smart guy, and going back to what you said earlier, he's with Tom Brady. Is there any rush? He's 40 years old, or 39 even. He was really young when he got that first job, similar to Lane Kiffin when he was with the Raiders, if you remember, now doing very well at Alabama again as an OC, not a head coach. It's like, sometimes it comes too early, we know this about people, and sometimes you just gotta look back and go, I've probably got 3 years of Tom Brady here at his best, why would I not just keep doing this, keep learning, keep studying, and then maybe go and do it when I can do it my way? Probably just waiting for the right opportunity, I imagine.
3 years, Tom Brady's just been around forever now.
He has indeed.
3 years, I mean, and I'm not even listening to that going, 3 years, you kidding me? I could see him playing for another 5 years.
He wants to play till he's 50. That's what he wants to do.
Oh, what a beast. Best quarterback of all time, I do admit it. Okay, look, let's move away from the head coaching jobs. We'll obviously have more of that when more roles are filled, but let's move on to a suspension now. And the wonderful, seminal, incandescent, and luminous Vontaze Burfict has been banned for 3 games. What's up with this dude between the ears?
I have no idea. One thing I do think about the suspension, they say it was because of a bunch of stuff, and the past history came into account.
Wait a second. Breaking news, Ollie. We'll get to Vontaze in a minute. The 49ers have appointed a head coach. It's just buzzed up on my phone. Do you want to know who it is?
Chip or Mike.
It's Chip Kelly, baby.
Yeah. Good hire. I think that's either going to crash and burn horribly, or he will wreck the league. It's going to be one or the other. There's no middle ground with Chip Kelly. He's either going to fail in 2 years and run to LSU or Texas or somewhere, or take over from Nick Saban at Alabama, or he's going to wreck the league, reinvigorate Colin Kaepernick, or draft Paxton Lynch and smash the NFC West.
There you go. Smash. Smashy. Interesting. There you go. We can talk more about Chip at another moment. Obviously, he's just thinking in. Back to Perfect.
The NFL says, it's been stated that this is a series of events. So not just this game, but the previous history, all the kind of dirty stuff he does. What strikes me about this, though, and I think the NFLPA will have a case when they appeal this, it just seems like selective enforcement, for one. And then secondly, it's kind of like when it becomes in public conscious, we've discussed this with the NFL before, it's like, if the pearl-clutching crowd gets involved, then suddenly they'll act. Whereas if we weren't bothered by it, they wouldn't have banned him. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just seems very selective. And when outrage happens and social media fires and then ESPN is all day, 24/7, Burfict bad, Adam Jones dumb, that's when they decide to take action. When he did a horrendous thing against the Ravens earlier in the year, no one even said anything.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't quite understand the mentality of some players in terms of their aggression, and how they don't know where to draw the line. I mean, they're professional players. I know they get emotional, they get head up, but some people just cross that line, and they must understand that it's going to have an impact eventually.
I think what's really difficult is I have no way of understanding these guys because I think, as everyone always says, they're part crazy. You have to be part crazy to play football. I have no idea what it's like to be those people. Like I said to you earlier, I fractured my toe by stubbing my toe the other day. It was agony. I was literally rolling on the floor. My dog was almost laughing. I could see it in her eyes because I was almost crying, stubbing my toe. I can even imagine playing between the tackles in the NFL. I just wouldn't survive. So I can't get into these guys. I can't get into these guys' bodies and criticize people for being injured. And when they do things that just seem out of the ordinary and just like I could never do that, it's tough to judge the guy when I've never been in that situation. I don't know what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this guy because he is a loose cannon, and
they probably cut him.
Well, yeah, there comes a point with people where you think this is just not worth the hassle.
No, I mean, and also you have to factor in that the Bengals for a long time were a laughing stock, as people know. And it was because of things like being soft, for example. And I'm not excusing the behavior, but they brought in guys like this to be this. This is what they wanted is they looked at that division. They said, we get our ass kicked every year because the Ravens are tougher than us with Ray Lewis and the Steelers are a monster with James Harrison and company. So they went out and they got their own rough and tumble guys. There's guys who would gouge people at the bottom of the pile. They felt they needed that to compete in that division and to compete in the league, because they didn't have that, and they had a soft head coach and they had a soft organization, and he goes too far, and I think there's a good chance they do release him.
Okay, let's move on to some team news, and this is actually this might be the biggest news of all of this, to be quite honest. The Rams, they're going back to LA, Ollie. It's been agreed, and they're going to be playing in the Coliseum for the next 3 years before their new stadium. And I tell you what, if you take a look at that new stadium, it's pretty impressive. Before that gets set up, Ollie, take us through the deal with the Chargers and the Raiders in terms of options to join the Rams.
Yeah, the Rams are going to be moving there. They're moving. They're looking to be in LA by April and move all the facility there in time for the off-season workout program. The Chargers, it's kind of an interesting situation now. The NFL gave them a year option to decide whether they want to move or not in a joint deal with the Rams, whether that's to be tenants at the Rams or be co-owners of the stadium. They have options for both of those for the two parties to figure out a deal. And it's unclear at this moment in time. Some are reporting that the Chargers are absolutely going to go and trying to get there for 2016 now. They're working on that deal. And others are saying it's purely going to be a leverage play to try and get the city of San Diego to help build a stadium in San Diego to keep the Chargers there, whilst the NFL has again committed another $100 million to try and keep the team in San Diego. So they're all kind of playing both hands. What we do know is the Rams will be there. They're now officially the LA Rams again. I feel bad for the St. Louis fans the way it went down, but it's just a business. And I know people hate saying that, and it's different for us as European people when you glow. Like, imagine Everton just leaving Liverpool because Liverpool's the market dominant thing. It just wouldn't happen. But they're franchises, and it's not good for business to be in a city where they're not coming to watch you play games.
So what do you think is going to happen ultimately with the Chargers and the Raiders? I mean, what would you put your money on?
I don't know. The St. Louis doesn't want a team, so that changes things now. Their mayor said they're not going to go for another team. They would have to destroy the stadium that they're still paying off, which is insane. And then build another one for a new team. So they're out the picture now. So it's either going to be San Diego agrees to have a team, whether it's the Chargers or the Raiders, or I think that San Diego will move to LA and the Raiders will stay in Oakland. That's what I think.
Okay, there you go. Love it. Ollie, a final bit of news you've just tacked on here on our little call sheet. Oh, yes, pull back the curtain. You think the Texans are going to release Arian Foster this season?
Yeah, Pro Football Talk reports that this is pretty much a done deal. I think a lot of us have thought this, given his cap charge and just the fact he can't stay healthy. He's just not played enough, and he's an expensive running back. And given all we know about how interchangeable running backs can become when you can find an undrafted guy like Thomas Rawls to be one of the best rushers in the league, this was likely coming. I find it interesting that they release this news or leak it to Pro Football Talk without sitting down with him and discussing some sort of pay cut or a deal where he just gets paid per play. And maybe they will at some point, but it just seems like they're going to move on entirely.
Okay, there you go. We will obviously have lots of free agent releasing, all that kind of stuff, news as we get into the off-season. But now it's time to turn our focus onto the games again. Well, we still have games, because there are still games left to play. It's the playoffs. It's the divisional round. Ollie, spin it. Yes, we've got 4 games for you, ladies and gentlemen, and all of them are absolute peaches. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. A little bit concerned about the second game that comes up during this weekend, but never mind. Let's start off, Ollie, with the Chiefs travelling to the Patriots. Now, the Chiefs went and handed it to the Texans in the wildcard weekend, and now the Patriots had a bit of time off, but they've been a bit banged up on the offensive line, Ollie. How do you think the Patriots are going to deal with this Chiefs team?
I think it's going to be really tough. Now, I always come back to, you give Bill Belichick an extra week to game plan. He's facing Alex Smith and Andy Reid, and he has Tom Brady in his back pocket. So I would always go advantage Patriots, but you're right. It's not a good matchup for the Patriots. We saw this last year when they went into Kansas City and just got completely destroyed because they weren't healthy and their offensive line was terrible. And it's a similar sort of scenario right now with the Chiefs playing very well on both sides of the ball.
Interesting. What do you think is kind of keeping the Chiefs away from a victory here? I mean, you put out an interesting stat, Ollie, which is that Alex Smith is, in his career, he's 7-38-1 when the opposition scores 21 points. And this is Tom Brady, this is Gronkowski, this is an offense that can move the ball, my friend. So there is quite a good chance that they're going to score 21 points.
Yeah, and people always hate that you tie quarterback wins to, the wins to the quarterback, but I think that's a fair one when it's only 21 points. It's not a great ask. He's had good teams around him, Alex Smith. He's had teams around him who went to the Super Bowl and his team benched him because they thought there was a better option. And this Chiefs team has been pretty good or very good since he's got there. So he's been surrounded by good teammates, and every time the opposition scores 21 points or more, they have a very good chance of winning the game. And as you mentioned, it's tough to see, even with this very good Chiefs defense, New England not getting to 21, 23. So that's their goal. Go and score 24 points, and if you do so, you should have a very good chance of winning.
And what about the Chiefs as well? I'm going to move on to the Patriots in a second, Ollie, but the Chiefs, we're looking at two key players that might not actually be healthy for the game in Houston and Macklin. And I think the real key one here, not Houston, despite the fact he's such a good player, that edge rush is really important. But I feel like if Smith doesn't have Jeremy Macklin at full strength, that's going to be a killer for him actually, staying in this game if it comes down to, you got to put points on the board.
I think one thing it does for them offensively is I think they're just a smart team. Doug Pederson's probably going to get the Eagles job. Andy Reid is very smart. We all know this. They lose guys like Jamal Charles. They bring in Kendrick West, people we've never heard of, Spencer Ware, and they can keep rolling. They're a smart team. What I think it will do is I think it makes him gun shy. And we all know the reputation of Alex Smith. It's not so much the check down or the high completion or that kind of stuff. It's the inability to throw into a tight window when you need him to. But with Jeremy Macklin, that's what he's done all year. He's thrown into tight spots. He's thrown the ball down the field. He's been willing to put the ball up for grabs to let Macklin make plays. He take that guy out. I don't know if he has that chemistry of Conley or anyone else on the team where he would be willing to just let the ball fly. Or maybe he had an epiphany and he would just do this, but we wouldn't know until we see if Macklin's out.
What about the big man, Bill Belichick? You know what he does, Ollie? He likes to say, we're going to take X away, and you're going to have to beat us some other way. When looking at the Chiefs, what is that X going to be?
It's a difficult one because Jerry Macklin may be the guy that you would think of normally, but if he's not healthy, is it worth directing two people onto Jeremy Macklin? Is he the guy you take away anyway? Do you try and stop the run game and force Alex Smith to throw the ball? Do you try and take away Travis Kelce? And I think this is a dilemma they'll have had for 2 weeks. It's not that they're so overbearing like the Steelers, like, oh my God, which guy do we take away? It's just like, it's plotting and planning. What's the best tactic for him? I haven't decided yet which one I think he'll do. I think maybe Kelce, and they'll take their chances up front against a battered and weakened offensive line for the Chiefs in the run game. And I think that's probably the way they'll go.
It's really interesting as well if you actually look at the stats from the whole season in terms of offense against defense. One of these teams is the 6th offense and the 6th defense. One of them's the 5th offense and the 12th defense. And actually, the 6 and the 6 is the Chiefs, Ollie. So statistically, they've got a really good chance here.
Yeah, they're so balanced, and they do it on both sides of the ball that we mentioned. Now, everyone's talked about the Patriots, and Patriots fans have been talking all season about just wait till we're healthy and then we'll come and wreck the league. And it makes sense. They have, as you mentioned, a great quarterback and a great coach, but the Chiefs are just as beat up right now. I mean, their offensive line has been beaten up all season. They've lost Justin Houston from full health. He's come back, but he's not as explosive as he normally is. And then Jeremy Macklin's struggling as well. 2 of their top 5 pieces are struggling with injury, and they already lost Jamal Charles. So they are a very good, well-balanced team, but they just have to try and get those guys healthy for this game.
Okay, Ollie, let's talk about predictions then. What do you think is going to happen in this one?
I just can't bet with Andy Reid and Alex Smith on the road in Foxborough. I understand all the matchups, and this is a very nice matchup for the Chiefs. It's about as good as they could have got. It sounds silly because it's the Patriots, but what they do well is what the Patriots have struggled with this season. That's defend the quarterback. And I think it's going to be close and tight, but I'm going to give the edge to the Patriots 24-21.
Okay, I'm going to go for a really tight one. I'm going to go overtime, and the Chiefs win it in overtime, 20-17.
Does Belichick kick off?
Somebody gets confused and the toss is ballsed up.
And you don't think that would be Andy Reid if you had to bet?
Good point.
He's so Andy Reid.
He cocks it up, but somehow it works out for him.
I like that.
Okay, moving on to the second game of the weekend. The Packers taking on those Cardinals. It's a rematch of the 38-8 nightmare that the Packers were subjected to just a couple of weeks ago. Look, I could quote, Ollie, all the statistics at you in the world, because the Cardinals blow the Packers out of the water, really, when it comes to that. The Packers' defense is fairly decent, but in terms of everything else, Ollie, it's not a great situation here for the Packers. And you think about how they got hosed when they went in there before, how good the Cardinals are. They've had a week off to rest. This is surely, most people will be taking the Cardinals. I mean, 95% of people have just got to be going with their brain and taking the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's not just the brain, it's the eyes. We watched these two teams play a couple of weeks ago, and it wasn't even close. It was a complete beatdown. Sometimes that can be confusing. We've mentioned before how the Patriots, week 17, possibly the greatest team in the modern era. They play the Giants, they beat them, they play again in the Super Bowl, they get knocked out. Weird things happen, wonky things happen in the playoffs. I just think it's a tough game to preview because we watch what happened. And all you can really say is, are the Packers going to show up? Are they going to show some signs of what there was in Washington? They went with the no-huddle stuff. They were able to get a run game going in the second half. Can they do any of that stuff against the Cardinals? And this is something that Arizona does so well, is they take away the broken play. They take away extended plays. They stay in their rush lanes. They don't let people like Russell Wilson escape from the pocket. They don't let guys like Aaron Rodgers move around a great deal. That's what the Packers like to. That's what they kind of have to do with these guys who can't get off press coverage playing receiver. Are the Packers able to get some of that stuff going, make some of that magic happen? And that's kind of what they need.
It's really interesting, Ollie, because as you said, we've seen it once before. All the stats are there. There's no point really going into it. We know what's going to happen here in terms of if you were just looking at it on paper. I've got this funny feeling, Ollie. I'm not saying the Packers are going to win, but I think unlike last time, because it was a whole catalogue of errors, to be quite honest, that all descended on the Packers to mean that they lost by such a large margin and Rodgers was out of the game by the fourth quarter. I reckon this time, in the fourth quarter, Rodgers will have the ball and have a shot at either winning or tying or something like that. They will be in the game. Whether they win or not is a different matter.
That's fair. I just think the two best units on the field play for one team. And that's always a huge issue. And what one team does, I mean, if we listed the 5 best things that these teams do combined, I think 4 of them would probably be stuff that the Cardinals do. I mean, they run the ball, they throw the ball, they defend the run, they defend the pass. They do all of that better than what Green Bay does. So I have a hard time, like I said, previewing it because we watched it happen, and stuff could just happen. Don't get me wrong, the Packers, they have a great quarterback, they have a good coaching staff, they can figure stuff out. They've seen this team already and they were at their worst. Maybe they took some stuff from that and some cues, whereas the Cardinals go in feeling themselves because they already beat down the Packers. That kind of stuff can happen.
It's interesting. I just got a funny feeling on it that something's going to happen. Something like Palmer's going to go down on the second drive of the game or something.
Certainly possible.
Yeah.
The Packers need to come out here and find a way to stop the running game. We know that the Cardinals can throw the ball all over everyone, and we saw last week what this Packers secondary can do with some of the talent it has, and also the fact they can get to the quarterback. Their 2 best defensive players may still be, McDaniels is great, but you have McDaniels, Julius Peppers, Matthews. They can get after the passer if it's a passing situation. So we know that. How do they figure out a way to stop the run game? Are they going to shift McDaniels over to play Valdir and Iapati? The Cardinals have a major split where they run most of their run plays to the left. They ignore the right-hand side of the line. They ignore Bobby Massey. They get their best run blockers, Iapati and Valdir. They say, we're running directly at you. Try and figure out a way to stop it. Do the Packers overload one side of the line? Do they shift Daniels? Do they just stay in their base? That's probably going to be the key for them if they're thinking outside the box to try and win this game. Okay,
you care to give me a prediction?
What did I write? Let's see. I'll take. I forgot. I'll take the Cardinals 31-21.
Okay, I'm going to take the Cardinals as well, but I'm going to take them 24-20. Green Bay driving, and it just comes up short, either a turnover or they just don't get it. Okay, next, Ollie, we move on to, and this is. Actually, I think the last one actually is probably the most interesting one, but this game really. I want to watch it. Well, obviously, I'm going to watch all of them. But this game has really got me interested, Ollie, because the Panthers are going to go into this game against the Seahawks really supercharged, that people don't believe, thinking that people don't believe in them because they're the Panthers and the Seahawks, we've seen them all before. And I think the Panthers are going to have a legitimate point. They're the number 1 seed, and I don't think they're going to be favoured in this game, Ollie.
No, I mean, I don't know. I've not seen the Vegas lines in that term, but in terms of a fan consensus, I think you're right, because what we have here is a team who has the full season body of work, which looks great. And they're 15-1, and they've got the league MVP, and they may have one of the best 2-3 defenses in the league. They may have the best defensive player in the league playing at his prime. They've got all that going for them, but the Seahawks are the hot team in the league. Everyone loves them. Everyone's talking about Michael Bennett. You can't stop the guy. Russell Wilson playing out of his mind. They were able to dig out a game last week that they, in all honesty, shouldn't have won. It came down to a missed field goal at the end. But that they're incredibly hot with that defense that can make plays. And I think people will get behind the Seahawks going into this game. I think you're right.
So, what can we expect to see? What's going to be the thing that decides this game, Ollie? Because they're two good teams, two stout defenses, two quarterbacks that can make plays, when they break down, Newton using his legs, and of course Russell Wilson using his legs. What's going to be the key?
I think the key, like with all these games, is who can pressure the quarterback the most. Who can put Russell Wilson under pressure? Can the Panthers figure out, did they watch the tape of the Vikings last week and see what the Vikings did? Those two defenses are similar in terms of personnel. They've got very athletic young personnel. They're similar in terms of scheme. What did they take away from that game? Chris Collinsworth highlighted perfectly. Most teams don't like to rush beyond Russell Wilson because they don't want him to step up and make plays with his legs. The Vikings decided, let's rush way beyond Wilson because he likes to move backwards then to move forwards rather than step up in the pocket. Did the Panthers learn from that kind of stuff? Can they get penetration? Can they attack Russell Wilson? That's the way you're going to slow down Seattle, obviously. And then Cam, I don't know how you can stop the guy. That's why he's league MVP. He's the most dangerous third down threat in the league. He can run, he can throw. I don't know how the Seahawks stop him, so it comes down to can the Panthers stop Russell Wilson moving the ball.
Okay, I really want your just final overall opinion on this one, Ollie, because you have been a Cam Newton fan all the way through, and you've been a Panthers fan. You've been talking them up as how good they are, because they have been excellent this year, Ollie. But this Seahawks team are coming in like a juggernaut. I know that the last game wasn't a juggernaut game, but they got through it, and that's the point. And they've been there before. They've got the experience. They've got the talent, and they've been hitting the form right at the right time at the end of the season. Weigh it up, Ollie. How's this one going to fall?
This one's a really tough one. Probably the toughest game to call of the weekend. I'm going to take Carolina at home, 24-21. A really, really close game. I believe in Cam. I think that we are overlooking the fact that even though the Seahawks are great, we love the personnel, we love the way they've been playing, the Panthers have been this good the entire season. It's not just been a 6, 7, 8 week stretch. They've been this good the entire season. They have the league MVP. They may have the defensive MVP in Luke Kuechly. They've got a shutdown cornerback. They've got a devastating run game. They can throw the ball downfield. They tick every single box, and yet we're still stuck in this small mindset of it's Carolina versus the mighty Seahawks. I'm going to take Carolina at home 24-21.
Okay, it's interesting, Ollie. I'm going to go the second overtime game of this weekend. Yes, another one's going to overtime. And in this one, it's going to go beyond one quarter of overtime because they're going to cancel each other out in the first quarter. No one's going to move the ball. It's going to get into the second period of overtime, and it's going to be going on, and we're all going to be concerned about, is it going to clash with the Steelers-Broncos game? That's what we're going to be talking about. And then somehow, some way, the Panthers grab it, and they're going to win 24-21. Same score.
I'm going to say this, and I don't want Seattle fans to be upset at me, because as you mentioned, I do like Seattle. Not a huge Russell Wilson guy, but I do like that team, and I like Sherman, Bennett, and I like Pete Carroll. But I just want the Panthers to win. I don't often root for teams, but I really want Cam Newton to win this game. I want Ron Rivera to win a playoff game. I think they deserve it. I've seen enough of Seattle in the playoffs now. I get it. They're great. We're going to remember this team all time with the Legion of Boom and all that stuff. I want Cam Newton to find a way to win a Super Bowl and break the mold of quarterbacks who win well.
Yeah, I would like that. And you also know how much of an anti-Russell Wilson guy I am. Do not like that dude. No. Okay, let's go on to the final game. We've got the Steelers at the Broncos. We've got the Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger as, my shoulder, my leg, my hip. Against the Broncos with Peyton Manning. No, I'm fine, but actually my inner monologue's going, my leg, my hip, my neck.
Both these guys find well to tell the media how beat up they are, just so we know. Just so we know how tough they are. Yeah.
Ollie, I'm struggling to call this one. I'm struggling to make out exactly what's going to happen because I feel like if you look at the statistics in terms of, say, where the teams finished in offense and defense this year, so the Steelers 3rd in offense, 11th in defense, the Broncos 25th in offense, 1st in defense. Great. I feel like you just chuck it out the window because in this game, these teams have been beaten up. You don't really know what you're going to get from each of them on a week-to-week basis, particularly the Broncos. But with Roethlisberger injured, Manning coming back in, obviously, after he came back in the last week of the season, you kind of struggle to really associate them with the statistics they've actually put up during the season. So because of that, Ollie, this one I think is the most interesting, as I've said already, and I think it's the hardest to pick. And I kind of want to side with the Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger, but even though he's been injured before and he keeps on going and he does it himself because he's a hero, just at the Broncos with that defense, I think this could be a low-scoring game that the Broncos just eke.
I'm really unsure. I mean, it's going to come down to, are they healthy first and foremost? Is Ben going to be healthy? How healthy will he be? He's probably going to play because he's Ben Roethlisberger and that's what he does. But can he throw the ball? He couldn't throw the ball at the end of the Cincinnati game and he was shot up on all kinds of cortisone in that game and he still couldn't throw the ball. How healthy is he going to be? Will he have to come out the game? How healthy is Antonio Brown going to be? Looks like he's not going to play. You lose Antonio Brown against the best press team in the league, you're going to be in all kinds of trouble. So it comes down to health for me. I think you're right in saying that the season doesn't matter with this game because it comes down to health and individual performances. And I think there's going to be maybe 3 or 4 individual matchups that could decide the game. But this is the most simplistic game of quarterback play. Like, if Ben plays at his best, which is top 3 in the league, I think he's probably the 3rd best quarterback in the league. If he plays at that level and he's healthy, they're going to win this game. Because if he's going to beat that Broncos defense, then Denver doesn't have a chance. And if Peyton doesn't play well, then Denver won't have a chance. And if Peyton does play well, they'll have all the chance in the world. So it's going to come down to those 2 individuals and a couple of key matchups.
But it's just so difficult, Ollie, because I don't trust Big Ben in the injured shape he is against that defense, but then I don't trust Peyton Manning in any way against any defense with anybody on the field. It could be the 32nd best defense in the league. It doesn't matter. And the Steelers, they've got some formidable players on there. I mean, you look at Shazier. If he goes and knocks the crap out of Manning, we could see Osweiler pretty quickly. This could be a fascinating game that ebbs and flows, and that's why I don't think it's going to be high scoring, Ollie.
And there's all kinds of sub-storylines. Could this be Peyton Manning's last ever game in the NFL? That's certainly possible. Will he end the game on the field if it's his last ever game? Not just through injury. That's certainly possible with his age. And if they do get to him and they blitz a bunch in Pittsburgh, what happens if he just plays poorly? I think people have forgotten because he came in, he called a few audibles, and he got the run game going. He didn't throw the ball well when he replaced Brock Osweiler, and he was terrible. He was the worst quarterback in the league when he was playing, though he claimed he was injured the entire time. It was probably some of that time. And even then, he's just making mental errors the entirety of the season. If he plays poorly, would they bench him? If he just doesn't play well, would you go back to Brock Osweiler and say, okay, we need to jumpstart the offense again? I think that's an interesting subplot, and this could be the last time we see him play.
Yeah, what if he gets yanked off? Not in the good way.
If Gary Kubiak pulls him off on Sunday, I'll be impressed.
Yeah, that's true. So will I. No, hang on.
Show some balls, Gary. That's what I say.
Okay, balls. Okay, Ollie, you're going to have to give me a prediction on this one, my friend.
I haven't even given one at the moment because I don't know if Roethlisberger or Brown are playing. I'm going to say Roethlisberger plays and Antonio Brown doesn't, and I'll go 21-17 Steelers.
Okay, I also agree. I think Roethlisberger will play, but I don't think Antonio Brown will, because of the concussion. And I'm going to play. This is going to be a weird game. It's going to end up being 9-6 to the Broncos.
I like that.
9-6 to the Broncos at the end of the day. Okay, Ollie, they're the games.
If Peyton doesn't play well, would you bench him? Tom Moore?
Yes, I would. Of course I would.
Okay.
It's a playoff. You can't piss around.
I don't know. They pissed around. They made him the starter again. So.
Okay. Okay. Right, Ollie, they're the games done. I suggest we get some listeners' questions and some iTunes reviews.
That's it.
Okay, first listener's question comes from Daniel Negus at DannyBoy1704. He says, what do you think Chip Kelly will have learned from his time at the Eagles? So picking up here on the breaking news, what do you think he's going to have learned? And do you think he will be a success? That's what I've got from Daniel.
I think he'll learn, don't completely battle with your general manager to get his job, and then try and tell the media that it's not your new job when it was. I think there's not really a great deal for he was successful. This is the thing, is he won 20 games in the first years before he took the general manager job. If he had just stayed in as a coach, maybe he'd still be in Philadelphia right now. I think some of his principles work really well. Being efficient at practice, doing all those kind of things. I think he'll probably take more veteran player input. but you look at the roster there, you look at what he came into in Philadelphia, there was a lot of players who were there a long time, and they knew that regime a long time because it hadn't changed for decades. He's coming into a situation in San Francisco, he's just begging for a new regime. They want done with the Harbaugh era. They don't want to forget whatever happened with Jim Tomsula, and I think that group will be open to listening to new ideas, and it's a young group, so I think he'll be able to reach those guys more than he could do in Philadelphia.
Okay, Harrison Spence, the great Harrison Spence, I should say, says, how well will Deshaun Watson's game apply to the NFL? Will he likely be a number one pick when he is eligible?
I always worry about saying that about guys early because they play so well in years when they're not eligible to leave for the draft. We've had it with the likes of Christian Hackenberg, where people say, he's the future number one pick. You go 2 years later when he is eligible, and the guy might not even go in the first 3 rounds, though he probably will. Watson's a great talent, and I think he could be the number one overall pick in the draft because he does all the things you want from the mental standpoint. He has the great arm, he has the athleticism. What we saw in that national title game, when Clemson should have won that game, we saw an ability to look off safeties with the eyes, playing against an unbelievable Alabama defense. All those players who played defense for Alabama in that game, all of them are going to play in the NFL. That's remarkable. Every single one of those guys will play in the NFL, who's basically playing a pro-level defense, and he shredded them. And he did it with his eyes, with his arms, and with his legs. He's an elite talent. Now, I don't know if he can be Russell Wilson, as some others compared. I think he's a bit short. He doesn't know how to create open throwing lanes himself yet. But when he learns that kind of stuff, and he's got some years to do it, then maybe more of the Marcus Mariota level. He can get to that.
Harrison also asks, why are many college quarterbacks such as Denard Robinson and Nick Marshall not considered to play the QB position in the NFL?
Well, they don't do the things I just described there. First of all, those guys don't have elite arm talent or accuracy. They don't have a single elite quarterback trait. They have athleticism, which isn't the first thing you want in the NFL. You need accuracy, you need mental ability. And so guys like Manziel and Wilson are people that people would try to change a few years ago, but because you've got the likes of Drew Brees, you've got the likes of Wilson himself, they break the mold, and so they're allowed to play quarterback. But those guys just didn't have the skill set to play. I mean, you could maybe run, if you were going to run a wing T offense or a pure spread offense in the NFL, maybe you would put one of those guys in there. But when you're playing a game that's more about the mental side and accuracy, which is what this league has become with the throwing game, those guys just wouldn't cut it.
Okay, Simon Bidwell, I always get it wrong. He says, using the hashtag MCFS, please use that. I've seen some buzz on Twitter about who is the better rookie corner, Marcus Peters or Ronald Darby. Who would you pick?
Marcus Peters, I thought, had the best year. They're both very good. Both of them press corners, which I always enjoy. Guys who battle the line. Both guys who kind of had that maniac part about them. They really enjoy playing in the run game. I gave Peters my defensive rookie of the year vote. I thought he just had the better year. He made more pivotal plays. But down to down, they're about as good as each other. Peters has some more length. He can play more on the outside. Darby can play more on the inside. Both very good players. I'd give Peters a pick for the rookie of the year, but as better rookies, they're about neck and neck.
Okay, remember, keep hitting us up at ThomasMoore27, at Ollie with an IE, UKEZ. Jim Neal says, given his age and rebuilding job needed, would Coughlin be a good hire for the Niners? Well, unfortunately, Jim, too late now. I know you sent that before the hire was announced, though, so there's no shame in sending that question in. Ollie, would that have been a good pick for them?
I don't know. They went through the drill sergeant era with Harbaugh, then they kind of had the PE teacher with Tom Sula, so I don't know whether going back to that would have worked for them necessarily. I think the Coughlin situation is interesting because we know who has the Niners job now. Maybe this is more of an interesting discussion. Do you think there's any ageism involved with him? Like, people are just like, it's passed him by, he's too old. And having said that, he's only 5 years older than Pete Carroll. So it's not a huge difference. And everyone talks about him. Do you think that the look of how they coach, the fact that Tom Coughlin looks really old, and Pete Carroll is kind of that young, jumping around guy, that we distort their ages in our minds, and we act as though Coughlin is really, really old, he's a dinosaur, and he's beyond it, whereas we don't even mention it with Pete Carroll.
Yeah, of course we do. I mean, we do that in everyday life with anybody. If somebody's more energetic than somebody else and they look slightly younger, their skin's in a better shape because maybe they've not smoked their whole life or they've just used moisturizer, who knows what it is. You judge people differently. And there is ageism. There shouldn't be any ageism in any kind of employment, but there is. And it just can't be avoided. So there probably is some there, even in the NFL head coaching circles.
Smart.
Okay, let's move on to Mike Berry, who said, keep MCFS non-PC, mainly to launch some sort of appeal, to which the Art Radar said, we have to do this. Yeah, you hear it right. Hashtag firefighter, hashtag MCFS.
I like it. In response to our favourite iTunes review, I believe.
Exactly. There you go. Oliver Inwood said, how do you think the Pats defense matches up against KC's offense and vice versa with Patso and KCD? Well, we've covered that off, Oliver, a little bit with our talk about the game. But again, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, and I think that if you look at the way the style of the two teams, then both their defenses come out on top in that battle. Patriots struggle on the edge. That's where the Chiefs are at their best. The Chiefs like to play in space and offense. That's where the Patriots are at their best, playing Dante Hightower and Jamie Collins in space situations. So both defenses, in my opinion, win those matchups in terms of personnel talent. But one of those offenses has Tom Brady, so you can pick any offense apart. But defense,
Laura asks, what should RG3 do next? Which NFL team should be looking at him? I still think he's worth a gamble. Where did you get this question from?
This was sent to me for a mailbag written, but I thought it was interesting, so I thought I'd bring it to the podcast.
Thank you, Laura.
Give me your thoughts. You think he's still worth a gamble? You think that the off-the-field stuff is not worth it?
I think he's worth a shot, but I don't think he's worth pinning your hopes on. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, he's and this is where everyone talks about the Cowboys, and people laugh at the Cowboys when they say, oh my God, they're going after Manziel and RG3. Look what happened to them this year. They lost Tony Romo. They fell to, what was it, the 5th, 6th overall pick in the draft? They were almost at a championship game last year. You have to find backup quarterbacks. I wouldn't say, if I was any team, I wouldn't bring RG3 in and say you get to compete for the starting job. I would say you are my backup quarterback if my QB goes down. That's where we're at with him now. We can't trust his health. Same thing with Manziel, but I think that every team will look at RG3 in particular. I think most teams will look at Manziel. I think someone like the Chiefs, if you're Andy Reid, and you have Alex Smith, and it doesn't go well this weekend, why would you not say, okay, I've got Smith, we'll use him for another couple of years. Why don't I just take a look at RG3? I've got this new spread offense that's worked very well. Why would I not bring RG3 in as my backup? And if he blows me away in preseason, maybe we can do something.
Danny Perkins at DW Perkins 101 asks, how do they decide the fixtures for each year after the 6 division games? Is it just random? Yes, there's a rotational basis, but there's randomness about it, isn't it, Ollie?
Well, it's based on where you finish in the division as well. It's very, very complex, as all these things are.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that bit. So basically, you play everybody in your division twice. Yes. There you go. You get 6. You play everybody in your conference that finished in the same position that you did.
Yes.
And then you play the rest of another division in your conference and a whole division from the opposite conference on a rotational basis.
Yes, correct. Well done.
There you go. But I don't exactly know how the rotationalness gets its randomness. I don't know how that works.
No,
never does. Ollie, they're the questions.
They're the questions. Good questions.
Good questions. Please keep hitting us up. Use the hashtag MCFS at ThomasMoore27 at Ollie with an IE UKZ. Are you ready for the weekend, Ollie?
I am indeed. New Twitter handle, Tom. No longer drop the what was it, UKZ? It's gone.
Oh really? Ollie with an IE UKZ is gone?
It's gone. It's just Ollie Connolly. My name.
Ollie Connolly.
That's me.
I'm excited, Ollie Connolly.
It's my Twitter handle.
Can you spell Connolly for everyone?
It should come up eventually. It's CONNOLLY, but it's,
Connolly.
Yes.
Exactly. Please keep finding Ollie Connolly on Twitter because he's a good guy and I think I've met him once. Yeah, he's a good bloke. Whoever he is. Ollie, it's going to be a great weekend. 4 great games. Looking forward. I'm saying 2 are going to overtime. Maybe it'll be 3. Who knows? I think we're going to at least get some overtime this weekend.
Yeah, and I don't think either of us picked an upset, really. The Chiefs one would probably be the upset, and I think we're going to have one. I think there's going to be something that shocks us, whether it's the Steelers just go in and blow away the Broncos, or the Chiefs do go in and just upset the Patriots in the same way they did last year. I think one of those is going to happen. It usually does it this weekend.
Well, let's face it, the biggest shock would be the Packers beating the Cardinals, really.
That's another great one, and that could happen. Or just that the Steelers go in and just trample over the Panthers. That's in play, and that would be stunning.
Exactly. Okay, Ollie, that's it. Another great show. We hope you listeners go out there and enjoy the divisional weekend. If your team wins, then great. If it loses, then don't be too sad. Don't cry. Season's only over for a short period of time. Of course it's not. It's a hell of a long off season, but never mind about that. So for now, it's goodbye from Ollie.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. And also goodbye to a true great, Alan Rickman. It's rather self-indulgent of me, but I've left it to the end, so you don't have to listen to it if you don't want to. But this guy was an inspirational and an incredible actor. He used to fill the whole screen and the whole stage whenever he performed. And it's a true loss to the acting profession and to the great historic tradition of British theatre and film to lose this guy. So